Somebody
That's
cut
called
him.
that's called reverse mojo.
8:45.
Reverse mojo.
8:45.
I hope it proves you wrong. You hope to be proved wrong.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner?
Here.
Reverend Campbell?
Here.
Mayor Gilstrap?
Here.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Here.
Dr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Saunders?
Here.
Mr. Shanks? Mr. Vogler? Mr. Whittle?
Mr. Shanks is present. Please stand for the invocation by Councilman Larry Campbell and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the
Can we
United
bow our
States.
heads, please? Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for the rain that is coming down to replenish the earth. We thank you for the over 1,100 city employees who helped to run this city so smoothly. We ask you to bless our session tonight. We pray for your wisdom and your understanding. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we are pleased to get an update from the Danville Humane Society. Ms. Paulette Dean.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of administration, and members of council, thank you for letting us come. First of all, in this day when respect and negativity seem to invade everything, I want to offer our sincere gratitude for everything that you have done for us in the past. We're grateful for our partnership. From the administrators I've worked with, the chiefs of police, the department heads, all the way down to every single city employee, we are grateful and we are thankful. We believe that our partnership has been a very beneficial one to both parties. And we also believe that we have kept not only the letter of the contract, but the spirit of the contract that is in effect with our running the shelter. I've been the director of the Danville Area Humane Society now for 25 years. Yes, I'm older than dirt. I started when I was very young. And I served on the board for many years before that. I was on the board in 1983, actually, when we started negotiating with the city to operate the animal shelter. And I was there and voted for our building onto the existing facility at that time. On June 1st, 1984, we opened the doors, and we thought we were going to solve all the problems for all the animals. And then that first day, we got in 100 animals from their owners, and reality hit us like a ton of bricks right in the face. Reality. Open admission shelters deal with it every single day. We work diligently at the Danville Area Humane Society to turn reality into miracles for the animals and for the humans that live in the community. There have been many changes in the animal welfare field since 1984, but especially since 1992 when I became the director. Since I've been a vegetarian since 1973, I don't wear leather, silk, or wool. I don't wear makeup that's been experimented on animals. I was considered quite the animal activist, and I would get hate mail at that time from people who claimed I shouldn't have the job because I love animals too much. Now, I receive letters, emails, and comments on social media demanding that I be fired or killed because I direct a shelter that euthanizes animals, and people want me arrested for cruelty because I obviously hate animals. So tonight I'd like to share with you some of the realities that we faced then and we face even more now. In 2004, and some of you will remember, we hired a team from the Humane Society of the United States to come in and spend 3 days and evaluate everything about our operation of the shelter and our other programs. We spent $20,000 on this. We did this because we had come under fire for our adoption guidelines. And the one line in that review report was worth the $20,000 that we spent. It said that they found that our adoption guidelines were reasonable and appropriate given that we had the task of finding good homes for animals. However, I've never forgotten something else that was in the review report. They found us to be fiscally responsible in our spending, but felt that our limited funds to operate the shelter and run our other programs, plus the high number of animals that we receive, left little room for expansion or progress, and they felt we were just treading water all the time. Let me touch on the realities of that. Part of the original contract with the city allowed us to accept all animals from every locality and every species of animal. We received a very small daily stipend from the city for each city animal that we received. In 1988, our board president approached the then city manager and said, we can't afford this anymore, and we're going to have to renegotiate the contract. The city agreed to pay us at that time about $75,000 each year. The required monthly reports were broken into 3 areas: personnel services, animal care, and operating costs. The city agreed that they would only pay us 70% of the animal care costs because we took in animals from all other localities. In 2002, that reality changed significantly. Pittsylvania County decided to start accepting cats, and they called and asked if we would shelter the cats for them. Suddenly, the hundreds of city cats that we received turned into thousands of county cats. In 2007, thankfully, the city approached the County Board of Supervisors, and it was agreed that the county would pay us 30% of the allotment from the city. The city would still pay us that full amount, but the formula was that we got 30% of our animals from the county. Actually, it was closer to 50%. So our check from the county would be $3,950 each month. And the Board of Supervisors really did not like that, so they said, we want proof that we will be paying the right percentage. That first month, the stars aligned, and somehow just about 100% of the animals that we got came from the county, so we sent them an invoice for $10,000, and they called and renegotiated. So since then, we have been getting $3,950 each month. So that stopped. June 30th of this year, with their new shelter opening, that stopped. We have the latest financial reports, May 31st, 2017, which is the 11th month of our fiscal year. It cost us $248,334.57 to operate the shelter. The city paid us $113,337.81. These amounts do not include our vigorous spay-neuter program, our cruelty investigations, humane education, adoption program, domestic violence sheltering of animals, and all of our outreach programs. Those are privately funded. We have 9 shelter employees that are paid by funds that we receive from the city, and I am not paid by those. I am paid by donations. I can assure you that none of us will retire as rich people. Our financial reality has changed, but we remain just as committed to helping make miracles happen. We do not know how this new shelter is going to impact us. We know that feral cats will not be accepted there, and we have already received many feral cats from county residents. Waiting lists, animals turned away, and acceptance fees will also have an effect, and time alone can measure that impact. I don't know. One of the first things I told my board in 1992 is that we should be transparent about the number of animals we receive. I naively said that if people knew how many animals we receive, and that year we received fewer than 1,300 animals, that more people would spay and neuter their animals. 5 years ago, I believe, we received 6,000 animals. These past few years, we have experienced a steady decline in the number of dogs received. That's because of what the city has done. We provide spay-neuter assistance, but in Danville, the free roaming of dogs is prohibited, and we require the licensing of dogs, so good job. We have always published our year-end numbers. However, in 2002, the reality changed again for all releasing agencies in the city of Danville, city of Virginia, and now we have to publish on the VDAC's website our annual report. The reality today is we are one of the very few remaining open admission shelters in Virginia. I can actually only think of 2 others. Shelters that euthanize animals come under great attack. It's true that what happens to a human population affects the animal population and vice versa. Tonight, I want to renew our commitment now. Since we are going to receive fewer animals, our focus is going to be moving the city forward. We pledge, number 1, to continue our responsible fiscal oversight of city money, donations, and grants. We have a very thin budget and we stretch it to the limits. However, a comparison of public shelter budgets reveals that we are funded by half. 2, we pledge that we are going to operate the shelter according to state and local regulations, laws, and the best practices. The city public shelter has been expanded through the years. In 2012, we built an adoption center onto the existing facility, and we had already expanded the dog areas in 2007. These were built with private donations and through the generosity of the E. Stewart James Grant Charitable Trust. Every animal that comes to us, whether it be a dog, a pig, a cat, small companion animals, a parakeet, or large exotic bird, is treated with the same amount of respect and kindness. Sadly, the reality is we cannot save them all. We wish we could, but we live and work in the harsh realities of the world. 3, we pledge to work closely with the police department to keep the streets free of stray animals, for their sake as well as the public safety, and to investigate complaints of neglect and cruelty. We simply have the best officers in the country. The same goes for the fire department. We have provided the fire department with animal oxygen masks. We are grateful for the law enforcement personnel and the fire department personnel. We simply have the best in Danville. I feel so sorry for the rest of the country. 4, we pledge to be good stewards of the shelter building itself and to maintain it for the city in a sanitary, well-functioning condition. We are grateful for the assistance of the public work folks. They're also simply the best. 5, we pledge to work hard to find homes for as many shelter animals as we can. Our low adoption fee for dogs and cats includes full cost of the spay-neuter surgery, rabies shot, and a brief health exam. We vaccinate and we deworm. However, we will never place the public at risk by adopting out animals that we believe have a history of aggression. We won't do this. Shelters more and more are doing that as a way of lowering euthanasia rates. There are horror stories from all over Virginia that tell of adopters being seriously maimed or killed by adopted dogs. 6, we pledge to never place numbers over the good of the animals. Let me explain. One of the first steps that a shelter will do when they are under attack about their euthanasia rate is to end the owner-requested euthanasia of sick, old animals. Many times through the year, distraught and grieving owners have called us for help when their animal is simply ready to leave them. Some cannot afford that service to be provided by a veterinarian. In fact, 11 times during the past 6 weeks, we have provided this service. Those 11 animals are going to show up on our end-of-the-year euthanasia report. However, We have witnessed the animal suffering and the grieving owner, and the criticism that we face pales in comparison to offering relief and comfort to the animal and human. Forget the numbers, the stories of the animals are what is important. 7, we promise that we will never, as a humane society, participate in the trap, neuter release of cats. TNR proponents trap feral cats, spay and neuter them, and then a few hours later release them back where they were picked up. Dumpster sites, alleyways, fields, your neighbor's yard. Yes, and then shelters tout their lower euthanasia rates of feral cats. But of course the numbers will be lowered because they stop accepting feral cats. Free roaming cats are responsible for the deaths of up to 3.7 billion birds, 20.7 billion rabbits, squirrels, and chipmunks, and other small mammals, not to mention the disease spread. We believe that the property rights of humans should not be trampled on. Citizens of Danville should not have to endure property damage from feral cats. 8, we pledge to never charge the citizens of Danville a fee to accept their animals, nor will we ever place an animal on a waiting list. 9, we pledge to foster the principles of humaneness to the next generation. We are beginning programs of having workshops for young people. The first one is going to be held August 3rd, and I just can't wait for that. Finally, we appreciate every day the opportunity to help the creatures with whom we share this earth. The realities are harsh, but we work to make miracles happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Councilman Shanks.
You mentioned that the county is no longer providing assistance and financial assistance, and you mentioned that the city's financial assistance is well below half of your budget. How do you anticipate covering the shortage?
We are going to, right now we're in the mode of waiting to see how many animals and what we can do. We are shaving our budget. We are doing some things. Our animal care costs are going to be lowered, food and veterinary care, simply because we won't have as many animals coming in. And there's always the budget next year.
The reason why I asked is I was curious if you didn't have a request with the information that you provided tonight.
I'm sneaky.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Councilman Bugner.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for all that you and your staff do. I feel like you do a very good job for our city and represent us very well. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilman Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Dean, for all you do. At 25 years, a long time, and you do it well. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Could you read pledge number 8 again, please?
Uh-oh. What was number 8?
I think that was the one you weren't going to charge for citizen for service. Is that correct?
That is correct. Shelters nowadays may charge. For instance, a citizen in Danville can no longer take care of their animal, and so they take the dog to the local shelter, and there is a $45 charge for the shelter to accept that. We believe that since public shelters are required by state law and it's already taxpayer funded, then people should not have to pay, because the reality is some just cannot afford that.
Yeah, the reason I raised the question because I could imagine at some point that pledge may need to be adjusted based on revenues in the future. Maybe not.
Perhaps to residents outside of Danville in order to accept, but right now we do not intend to.
Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Jones.
I too want to thank you for all that you've done and all that you do. Your story kind of had me praying with you and praying for you when you talked about all the death threats and everything that you get on Facebook. It's a tough job. But you sparked a real interest in me. Some of the things that are going on in our community with young people, and you mentioned on August the 3rd workshops for young people. In my mind, I've always thought what pets and animals would do for kids who probably can't afford them. Could you just elaborate a little bit on a workshop for the young people on August the 3rd?
The workshop, this one's going to be a test workshop, and so we're limiting it to 10 from the ages of 8 to 11. And they will spend 3 hours with us having hands-on experience. A turtle rescuer is actually going to bring some of her turtles in, and they're going to have hands-on. They're going to help us give puppies baths. But we do have a vigorous volunteer program, and we do help at-risk youth and students who want to come and learn how to think beyond themselves, and that happens on a regular basis.
How do these young people get in this program, and how do the at-risk students, do they contact you? Do you go to the schools? How can we get these young people more involved in what you're talking about with these animals?
We have a volunteer orientation that's required, and that is usually twice a month. We advertise that usually on our Facebook page, and but you're right, I think we need to do a better job of getting the word out that is available.
You know, if there's anything I hope that we can do to help you, I think this is an excellent program for our young people to be able to have relationships and kind of deter them, but maybe getting a pet or working with a pet program or some sort could help them a whole lot. Thank you so much again for all you do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilman Miller.
Yeah, again, I want to congratulate you. You're like an icon of taking care of animals. It's a legend in this city, certainly. What is the difference if somebody wants to adopt a pet from you? How do you screen these people? Because, you know, I guess you let somebody adopt and then they mistreat the pet, versus if you go to a pet store, I guess you just go in and pay the money and you're out of there. What do you all do to try to ensure that the people who are adopting are responsible?
Wonderful question. We ask people to come in and choose an animal. Then there is a 2-page questionnaire telling us how you have taken care of animals in the past and how you intend to take care of this one. For instance, if someone came in and applied for a little Chihuahua, we would not want that dog to be a completely outside dog. And so we have a 24-hour waiting period, and that lessens the impulse adoptions. And so we do screen, and if people have to sign a contract and pay the fee, and if we get a complaint, then we have the right to go in and take that animal. And there is a level of trust. Thank you.
Okay. Paulette, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Communication from visitors. Citizens who desire to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Citizens who desire to speak on agenda items will be heard when the agenda item is considered. Anyone wish to speak on an item not on the agenda, please come forward. State your name and residence.
My name is Kermit White. I'm representing Swicegood Funeral Home, and I have some information concerning the escort service for the city. I'll read this pamphlet for you. Danville Funeral Directors had a meeting with the police department July the 11th to give our input on their plans to end the escort services that have been going on for a number of years. We gave them information concerning the problems of this ending the service. First, the safety itself will be one of the big reasons for continuing the service. Highway 58, east and west, Floral Hills, Highland Borough Park, 29, 40, 41, North Main, all those intersections are heavy. We do not have the protection that the city does to lead a funeral. We would have to obey all traffic laws, stopping at stoplights, intersections, another hazard, meeting cars, at people talking on telephones and texting, and if the families are left to get to the cemeteries on their own, it will result in a serious situation. This could cause a delay in the cemetery people to begin their grave covering and cause the family to have to pay overtime charges. Also, it could cause a problem finding this grave after arriving at the cemetery for friends. If the police department, if the police department should stop the escort service, in my opinion, it would show the lack of respect for the families and loved ones. Also, friends attending the service. Families have paid taxes for years to receive this service, to provide a thoughtful and loving service. The people I have talked to about this were shocked. Our citizens deserve better. It grieves me deeply to know something so important can be taken so lightly. What would you want for your family? A thoughtful and loving service, or a service of confusion? I seriously hope that our police department will continue to provide the service to the citizens of Danville so that they can have a loving and dignified service they deserve. It's much easier to prevent a problem than it is to correct one. I would like to thank the Danville Police Department for the wonderful service that they have provided over the years. I don't think anybody could compare it to them. And I thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Donna Randall from Clover, Virginia, and I'm a proud member of the Heritage Preservation Association. In 2.5 weeks, on August 6, 2017, we will mark the second anniversary of the city flagpole ordinance. I would like to ask the members to reflect upon these last 2 years and consider rescinding the ordinance and return the flags to Galileo Magnet High School, Bridge Street, and Sutherland Mansion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we go refer back to, you have a question from the,
yes,
for the first gentleman or for the city?
In reference to the police
funeral home.
Mm-hmm. If I have permission to ask a question.
Councilman Campbell, go for it.
Could I ask the chief to come forward, please?
Please.
How you doing, Chief?
Good evening.
Could you tell us the logic behind canceling the funeral home?
We have been considering this move for quite some time. It all comes down to two issues, safety and resources. At the current time, we are just had one officer resign today, and which makes us 17 officers short. So that factors into being able to answer calls and take care of the crime-related calls that we have to answer.
Excuse me, Chief, can you pull that mic up just a tad? For some reason, I'm having a hard time hearing tonight. Of course, I have a hard time hearing every night, but especially tonight.
Okay, does that work any better?
That's a little better, thank you.
Okay, all right. And we've done some studies, and we classify our calls 203 different ways. So every call that comes into dispatch is classified one of those 203 different ways. And at the top of the list, at close to 5,000 per year, are alarm calls. And funeral escorts are ranked at 35 out of 203 calls classifications. So, and those are not quite one a day, but we're looking at least 320 average per year. So, but the time involved in doing that, and it's not just a matter of doing the escort, it's a matter of 30 minutes prior to the escort, the officer can't take any other call because the officer has to be ready for the escort. So you have to add that 30 minutes onto the time for the escort, and it averages 45 minutes, 47 minutes really for every escort. So we're really looking at an hour and 15 minutes that the officer is not able to take any other calls for service. And when you add that up over the course of the year, it adds up to a lot of time. We've checked with other communities. When you look at got a list of them that we checked with, Charlottesville and, Richmond, Lynchburg. Lynchburg hasn't done them for about 15 years. Richmond does not do them at all. Greensboro doesn't. Winston-Salem doesn't. Roanoke still does, although they do have motorcycles. Charlottesville still does, but they have 4 officers assigned to motorcycles during the day, and they have the resources to be able to do that. We don't. And so the resource issue is the big reason. The second reason is safety. Every officer that has ever led a funeral procession and every funeral director that I've talked to can recount instances where close calls have been experienced during the escort.
Have you had any accidents, though? There's
Yes.
a difference between a close call and no accidents.
We have had them. We had one probably within the last 4 months out on Franklin Turnpike. And but there are a lot of folks that don't understand what to do in the escorts, and with cell phones these days, people are distracted, and when the light turns green, they go, and they're not looking for any evidence of an escort there. So the danger is there, and there's probably some liability along the lines too. So for those reasons, we made the decision that it was time to pare back on that service. And what we have suggested, of course, to the funeral homes is to, at the end of the chapel service, is to ask everyone to reconvene at the cemetery for the interment. And at 30 minutes, 45 minutes later, or something like that, and everyone drives there at their own speed, obeying the traffic laws, and that no escort would be required. Some of the other cities do allow for off-duty officers to provide the escort. When you look at it from the safety point of view, right now we usually do an escort with 1 officer, and sometimes more than that when we have to go through like Franklin Turnpike and 29 North and Piney Forest. That takes at least 2 officers, sometimes 3, in order to manage the traffic there for a funeral. So it involves a lot of officers. So the idea that all you have to have is 1 off-duty officer handling every escort is not true. You may have to have 3 on some escorts. And right now, I mean, half of our, let me backtrack, give you some more figures. We have about 90 of our 131 officers that actually work patrol and community policing. Those are the ones who do most of the extra duty. At any one time, half of them are working. They work 4 days straight, 12-hour days, so they can't work any extra duty. So you only have about 45 of them that are available to work extra duty, but not all of them want to. So you end up having about 20 of those 45 officers who are willing to work extra duty. And then when you're off and you're at home, and to get dressed, drive your personal vehicle in, get a police car, which may or may not be available. Daylight is our busiest time. And then go and work extra duty for an hour or 2 hours and go back home. I don't think we're going to have very many takers. The officers value their free time with their family, and so if you raise the compensation, that usually works. But I don't know if that's the right thing to do to the family of the deceased, to raise that to a point where it would attract officers to work extra duty.
Do you have any stats to compare accidents with escorts versus without escorts? And I guess I'm asking that is that until the public is trained, they're going to be expecting to go through the intersections where it's red or green. And I don't know, is there any stats to that effect?
I don't know of any.
Okay. Do you have any, are you reimbursed by the funeral homes?
No.
Do you know what surrounding areas, what does Pittsylvania County do? What does Caswell County do? What does Yanceyville? The areas right around us, what do they do?
I can tell you what most sheriffs do. They are elected officials, I'm sorry, and they require their officers to do the escorts. Most city police departments do not. I have checked with Sheriff Mondo. Would he be even able to take it?
I guess the problem I'm having is we got to train the citizens of Danville, but yet the areas around us are still going to continue that. So if an area around us comes through the city to a funeral, I'm not sure we're resolving a problem there or creating a problem there.
Well, you can't violate the law unless you have the police escort.
I know, but we aren't going to do police escort.
Right.
But the county is. If that person in the county is buried in the city, Highland Burial Park, okay, or Memorial Gardens, wherever.
Yeah, we have no.
They got to escort through the city. How? I don't understand how that's going to help us, unless the county, if everyone does the same thing, maybe.
I don't think the county sheriff would mind having his officers come to the cemetery in the city of Danville and continue the escort all in. I haven't checked with him, but he may indeed want to do that, and we could work that out with him for ones that originate in the county and then end up in the city.
I don't think you understand my question.
No, obviously.
All right.
I don't.
If we aren't doing escorts in the city,
yes,
okay, the county is going to continue the escorts
for services that originate in the county. Yes.
For funerals in the county. All right. But if they have to travel through the city, how is the public going to distinguish the difference between an escort from the county and a funeral with no escort? Because I don't think you're going to stop people from following
a funeral with no escort will not be going through traffic lights and they will obey every traffic signal and sign.
But will people following that car do it? I'm just saying.
Well, the lead car has to obey all the traffic rules.
Well, I would like to see if everybody does it. I can understand that. But if we are only one in a 3-4 county area, I don't know that we aren't creating problems. But it's not my decision. I don't know where we are here, so I'm going to start with Councilman Saunders.
Thank you, Chief, for all that you and your men and women do every single day. Obviously, change brings about a lot of attention. And from my understanding, this practice has been in Danville for, what, forever, so to speak? This change that you're speaking of, when is this change supposed to be implemented?
We met last week with the funeral directors, and the tentative date was August 1st because it's not a lot of lead time that you need for funerals, which is about 3 days. So we figured the 2-week time frame would be appropriate.
Okay, you say it boils down to resources?
Resources and safety.
Okay, do we have less resources now than we had before the change?
In the last 14 years, I've gone from 141 officers to 131, and we're at the moment 17 short. So yeah, and that's a constant. We run 10% short all the time.
Okay, were other alternatives considered other than reconvene 30 to 45 minutes after the service?
If someone can come up with one, that would be good. That's what we suggested, was the reconvening at the cemetery.
I mean, certainly your services, your department services are needed, and we certainly support what you're doing. I'd like to ask the manager to look into some possible options to doing this. You know, you talk about accidents, near accidents. So what I'm hearing from the community, I'm hearing about the possibility of accidents, and I'm also hearing a lot of emotional upsets. And I'm also concerned about what this change could do to what I call goodwill. I'm very concerned about that. For a long time, I have been an advocate that police department get the resources that you need. So if you're used to have 140, you're down to 130 allotted, don't know what the actual is, then maybe that's something in-house we need to look at as well. So I'm hearing concerns, and quite frankly, I have some concerns, but I respect you and your department, but I'm also hearing from the citizens, and I have mixed feelings right now, and I'm hoping that the manager can come up with some other option with regards to doing this. Officers working extra duty, is that an option?
That's an option, yes.
Okay, and you talked about 30 to 45 minutes it would take for the service? All right, so is it possible to have a list of officers who agree to do this during their off-duty hours and then compare that to the schedule of the calls that you get weekly in doing this?
It all comes down to if they're willing to do it. If I make them do it, I have to pay them overtime, and then I have to find a vehicle for them. I mean, we try to be as efficient as we can with our vehicles, and so the daylight shift is the time when the most vehicles are being used. And so if we bring in an officer, we can't take a vehicle from one of the officers that is already out there on patrol that used to do the escort. We've got to find them another vehicle if there's one available. So yeah, extra duty is a possibility, but there are all kinds of times when just the resources aren't going to be there, the vehicles aren't going to be available to do it, and the officers may not be able to do it. If it's a funeral escort that's going to take 3 officers to do, I think few and far between are we going to be able to get 3 to come in for a short period of time and, leave home, get dressed, come in, do the escort, go home, and take the uniform off. I'm just telling you, I don't know if it will happen that often.
Okay, and
it
Mayor,
will,
I'm almost
some,
finished.
but not often.
Okay, I'm almost finished, Mayor. So if you make the officer come in, he or she has to work, you have to pay him a time and a half.
You have to pay them time and a half.
Okay, but if they volunteer,
Yes.
they will still drive a police car, correct?
We would let them drive a police car. Currently, we don't charge for that, and there's no. Well, number one, we don't have officers coming in off duty doing escorts. We're doing them on duty. But if we did do an off-duty funeral escort option, my suggestion and recommendation is that we also charge for the use of the police car.
Chief, if you were asked to tie a dollar figure to this 30 to 45 minute cost, what would that estimate be?
I didn't.
You take about, I'm sorry, you said an hour and 15 minutes, per escort.
Right.
About an hour and 15 minutes. 30 to 45 minutes was the reconvened cemetery time, but you said an hour and 15 minutes for the escort. If you tied a dollar figure to the hour and 15 minute escort, what would the approximate number be?
When you look at the range of the salaries of the officers, I'm going to say $40 to $45.
$45?
$40 to $45.
$40 to $45.
40 to 45, yes.
Okay. Again, I think you know how I feel about you and your department, but this is concerning. And, Mr. Manager, I really hope you can come up with something that's workable for you and the police chief, because they do have a tough job and they do need the resources. And I would like for the city to make sure they have the resources. You mentioned, again, 140 some employees down to 130, and we've had these conversations. So I'll stop there, but police department need more resources. I've always said that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Miller.
Yeah, I too think we ought to look at alternatives. You know, we're all the time talking about hiring people who are non-patrolling, non-investigative to free up police officers from paperwork and so forth. Why, if this is used this much, and also for parades and other escort, things, why don't we? We've got 10 positions. Can't you hire somebody to primarily do this? They wouldn't be and have investigative or patrolling responsibility. They would do this. I mean, maybe school crossing guard. We hire people to do school crossings and schools. Why couldn't we have somebody that would have a position? Maybe some of those people would. Their other responsibility would be parades and funerals.
We
had
got
positions budgeted.
Yeah, we had auxiliary officers at one time, and we still are approved for 15 auxiliary officers. The state has increased their training requirements for them, and currently we have none.
Were those people paid?
No, they don't. They donate their time. School crossing guards are paid, but we can't find people to take the positions, and then we have to pull officers off of the street in order to work the school crossing posts, which we're going to do. We have to do. There's no way we cannot do that. And we have to do that in the morning, sometimes at noon, and then also in the afternoon. So I wish it was as easy as somebody out there who's willing to work and wants to do that. If we went to an extra duty position, I don't know if every family would want to pay that. So we may, from the 320 some funerals a year, we may end up going to 150 that are willing to pay for an escort. I don't know what that experience will be.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Chief, I'm going to try to go a different way. First of all, let me thank the funeral home directors for being here tonight. And Chief, thank you for being here. When this issue arose, I talked to the city manager and asked the city manager, did this have to take effect August the 1st? The other part where the mayor and I were informed that it would just simply be a discussion with the funeral home directors. No decision would be made. Later, I found out that a decision had been made that August the 1st, it was going to just take place. That disturbed me, and then I sent an email out asking, did this have to take place August the 1st? And now, this is what's happening. Here's my question again. Does this have to take place August the 1st?
No.
Can we have more discussion about this? Because I agree with Mayor Saunders. We appreciate everything you're doing, and I don't want it to be the police department against the funeral home, the police department, and I like both presentations. But the presentation from the funeral home was they applauded our police force, and you applauded the funeral home directors while meeting with them. Having that meeting with them and more or less saying that this is going to happen, I'm not saying that's what happened, but it feels that way. Can we resolve that by saying, can we postpone that and have a little bit more discussion about it, get their input, more of their input, because it sounds like to me they all came to the meeting, they all came here today, you all got a good reputation and relationship, that maybe if you all go back to the table, you can have a discussion, more of a discussion about it, and then before we come to open meeting with council, maybe there's a possibility that we can have a work session with council to get an input on exactly what's going to take place, because this has been going on for years. I personally just went through this, as everybody knows, with my mother, and I can be honest with you, and I hear what you're saying. I just couldn't imagine sitting in a funeral car and going to Highland Burial Park, and I'm sitting there at the stoplight, and the light turns green, and we go through the stoplight, and then all the family members and everybody that's still back there, we're at the cemetery sitting there waiting for everybody to get there, and then they buried my mom, and then his people still pulling into the cemetery. You follow what I'm saying? I don't want it. I agree with everybody. You are doing a superb job. We come a long way. But I even heard information here tonight that has me disturbed that we now down 17 officers after we just fought a budget trying to get more resources for our police department. And I just prefer, for me, this not be the setting that I hear that kind of stuff. And again, thank you all for coming. Please, and let me give you an opportunity to answer my question. Does this have to take place August the 1st?
No, it does not. That was our tentative date, and our meeting with the funeral directors was to inform them of our intention to start this process. And like I said before, I mean, they were united in their opposition to it. So it was, and I understand why.
Well, I can't tell you what to do because you work for the city manager, but I can make a suggestion. If possible, could you all relook at this and go back to the table, if possible, and see if we can work something out?
Be happy to. But I need to at least tell council that there's really only two choices. It's either continue doing them or not do them. I don't know of any way to halfway do them. We can't meet in the middle and do something.
And you do a good thing.
The only way to meet in the middle is to continue doing them or to not do them and then allow extra duty officers to do them.
And my last comment would be this. We had a similar situation, and Mr. Councilman Shanks chair this FBO. He and Dr. Miller on the committee, and they were able to, in my opinion, after speaking with Dr. Miller, they were able to compromise and work with both parties, and that's all I'm asking. Thank you, Mr.
Councilman Buckner.
Yeah, when all this first started, when I first heard about it, I emailed Ken and asked about the privatization of it, if we could turn it over to a private corporation or a private company to do the escorts. What are the pros and cons of that you see?
I think you would be hard-pressed to find any private company that is willing to take the risk.
But if there is a private company that's willing to take the risk,
if there is one, yeah, and I've heard of that. Some of the funeral directors that we met with in another state, they had heard there's a company that provides motorcycles that does that. There would have to be a law change at the state level to allow that to happen. Currently, it's only law enforcement that can do those types of escorts. So that's a long-term process.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Shanks.
Yeah, Chief, thank you for your thorough report, and I know you spent a lot of time on this issue. But I concur with you. There's only a choice between two options in my mind. Either you continue as you are, or you discontinue. I have extreme reservations whether it is a safety issue to do without the service or a better safety issue to continue the service. I think, I'm curious, if you have so many fender benders per 1,000 cars on a stretch of road, then whether it happens during a funeral or whether it happens during normal traveling, it's hard to say whether it increases or decreases due to the protection and that the police department provides during a funeral service. I concur that there are two choices, and with 320 events a year, all of them during the daytime, I would hate to see the city discontinue that service, and I feel like it is an issue that has to be addressed with manpower. And you mentioned you're 10% short, and always are 10% short. Hopefully, we can work on that as opposed to eliminating this particular service. Thank you.
I think anyone else? I think there's a key word we're missing here, Chief, and it's respect. Respect for that family should be a priority of ours. And I know that at one time when I was growing up, every car pulled over to the side of the road and parked until the funeral was by. Well, those days are gone. But I hate to lose all respect for that family and their illnesses. Also, if it's costing us, you say $50 a funeral and $300, that's about $16,000 a year. Like our funeral services in the cemetery, we pass that on to either the funeral home or the family. I'm just saying that we need to look at all the options, and I'm not supporting this service. And I say again, it's not my decision, but I'm not supporting it.
I do want to say that the state code that allows us to do the escorts, it doesn't require us to. It says that we may, if we're not involved in any other law enforcement activity. And so that's what the state legislature put out there. And we've had to miss some of the escorts. When something happens, we'll call and say we can't do it. But we try to make as many as we can in the current environment. And but it's like I said, it's resources and safety. We served 7 search warrants yesterday, and we served 5 today.
Oh, I know.
That creates friction.
There's not an easy answer to I will say this, most councilmen have heard me say before, I'd rather you tell me how we can than tell me how we can't.
I'd like to know what the law is anyway. When you're do you pull over off the road? I'm asking you.
Is it a requirement?
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay, if it's a median in the middle of the road, do you stop? If you're riding by a funeral, or do you pass one?
No, there's no requirement to do that.
Okay. Thank you. I just didn't know when they come by. I know we always pull
I
over.
think it was people did it out of respect.
Okay, that's
and
what I thought.
Somehow, I say that's a key word. We've lost that respect. It seems to me like we have.
Thank you.
Chief, I thank you very much.
But, Chief, you said it is less safer to have an escort than to have an escort. I have that backwards.
No, the escort, in my opinion, creates that false expectation that everyone else will stop for the escort. And so you cannot go from one side of town to the other with an escort without going through red lights. And so there's going to be, and the only way to do it more safely is to, if you pull up to that traffic light or that stop sign and you wait until a car comes, and then you make sure they stop and they see that it's an escort, and then you move forward. Well, that's going to triple the time, or you just can't do that in taking the escort in. So you go ahead and go through the intersections where there's nobody, and you hope that the person who's not in the escort who's coming up will see that. But if we stop doing the escorts, there is no escort. Everyone has to obey the traffic laws when they go to the cemetery.
Chief, could you still continue the services until we have a work session on this?
Yes, I mean, that's not a problem at all.
Thank you.
And I would like to see if there are any statistics out there, as Councilman Shank and I both mentioned, where safety versus safety, which one is the most safe? Especially in the first few months before people are trained what to do. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any one item on the consent agenda, I believe. Someone like to make a motion? Vice Mayor Jones.
Second.
You want
I move that we approve.
approval of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman Saunders. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Gilstrap?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Aye.
Dr. Miller? Mr. Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler? Mr. Whittle?
Under new business, consideration of council in the regular meeting of the city council schedule for Tuesday, August the 1st, 2017, and scheduling a special meeting of city council on Thursday, August the 3rd, 2017, to permit members of council and staff to attend local national out event. What is your pleasure, council? Councilman Miller.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recommend a resolution canceling the regular meeting of City Council scheduled for Tuesday, August 1st, 2017, and scheduling a special meeting of City Council on Thursday, August 3rd, 2017.
Is there a second? Councilman Buckner. Discussion? Short discussion. You can move it to the 3rd, which is fine with me. I'll be in the Bahamas. I can be here first. Call the roll, please.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Gilstrap?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Aye.
Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler? Mr. Whittle?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Communication, city manager.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Deputy city manager.
Nothing this evening, thank you, Mayor.
City attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
City clerk.
Nothing, sir.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Gilstrap?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Ms. Dean, thank you for the update. And congrats to our fellow councilman Lee Vogler for Legislator of the Year award. He's in Roanoke tonight receiving it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Jones?
I know he's in Roanoke, Buckner. He's watching this. So, Lee, this award is for you. Congratulations, and thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Miller?
Well, I thank people for coming tonight and talking about this issue, because I'm sure all of us have received numerous notices. It disturbs me that the funeral directors were united in their opposition and were just told what was going to happen. I think that was the wrong way to approach it. I'm not convinced there's it increases traffic hazards or wrecks. We haven't seen that. I can see the argument for resources, but I don't really believe that basing it on more accidents the way we're doing it now versus what could be done. I mean, I agree with the mayor. There's a certain amount of respect. You see somebody go by, or you're in, and you have respect for the person that died and all their family members. I still think we should stop when it goes by, but that's not the way it is anymore. But I think we need to look at this more closely. The bike share program got off to a great start. Before I came here tonight, I had a nurse in my office tell me that she and three of her family members went out riding yesterday. They loved it. I think it's going to catch on, and so I encourage people to go out. And first hour is free. You can ride for 59 minutes for free. Bring it back. It didn't cost you a penny, or you can keep riding. Our newspaper today had some good stuff. More River City development, businesses going downtown, a grocery store, another restaurant, more housing. Just the area continues to grow. And then I want to give a shout out to Mr. Walker Irby of Alnegra. They had their annual, I guess, block party, but it's more of their area party last Saturday night. And he has an upholstery shop there, and he lets people use his facilities and his parking area and everything. And they had hundreds of people, not only people who, 1,000, was it 1,000? People who live there now, but people who live there and came back. And there's a certain allegiance. I ask many people, do you have a problem with the city, anything we can do for you? And everybody said, no, we're fine. I was amazed. These people own their own homes. They work hard. They know each other. And it was just a great event with music, no hint of violence. I talked to one man who was back visiting his mother. He works in D.C., and he says his job's too good to leave, but when he retires, he wants to come back to Danville. And, we need to encourage Danville to be a place for retirees. There was an article in Showcase magazine recently on what this area has to offer people who retire. But the main thing I was amazed at is just how well people were enjoying themselves. There was no police there, nobody to keep order. They didn't need them. So a shout out to Mr. Irby for helping to sponsor this. That's all.
Mr. Saunders.
Yes, regarding the funeral escort, and not to be too redundant, we know that public safety, I think, is goal one for any city, and it should be. And that's everything you have to do with safety. And certainly escorting families to funerals to final burial is a public safety issue in my view. I understand with regard to resources. I've been an advocate from day one that the police department needs more resources. And I believe that the city is willing to provide that within reason. And I don't believe our police department would act for anything if it was not in reason. So with regard, and change can be painful. At the present time, the police department, in my view, has a lot of goodwill, and goodwill has value. It is also needed, and there has to be a way, in my view, to make this thing work, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager. $40 to $45 per escort, that's workable in some way. It just has to be. So I appreciate the chief looking for ways to manage his department and take care of the men and women with regards to keeping everybody safe. But this is a very serious issue, and it's more about emotional upset, although that's a major part of it as well. And respect, yes, that is very important. How you put a dollar figure on respect? Well, that's not the point. The point is respect, public safety, emotion, and everything else. So there has to be a way to make this work, in my view, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, and I'm asking our manager to work his magic to resolve this issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Shanks.
I have nothing to add this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Vogler.
Well, I apologize for Thank you. I was in Roanoke, and I caught the rain, I think, when I got there in Roanoke, and then I caught it again on the way back. But glad I was able to get here tonight. I have nothing else to add. That's it. Thank you. I'm ready for the work session. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Whittle.
Yeah, just thanks for everybody that participates and shows up. Thank you.
Mr. Butler.
Yeah, I'd like to remind everybody, as Dr. Miller did, that Zaxter has launched its bike share program for us here in Danville. If you get a chance to go down the Riverwalk Trail and check it out, it's absolutely wonderful. It's a fun way to spend an afternoon for sure. I'd also like to remind everybody of the Mainline Trolley. Kicks off Friday, August the 4th. It's going to have a big impact on our River District and Old West End and Ballou Park area, Schoolfield, North Main. I think it's going to do a lot to tie all the different communities together. And congratulations to my colleague and friend Lee Vogler for Legislator of the Year, Local Legislator of the Year. He was put forth by Delegate Danny Marshall and won it. So congratulations, man. I'm glad you made it back. That's all tonight, Mayor. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Everybody, I know there's a lot of people out there tonight without power. Power went out in a lot of different areas of the city. Just please be patient with our utility guys, and they've had a lot on their plate the past few weeks with some accidents and everything. So they will get you back up and going just as soon as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Reverend Campbell.
Yes, I want to say congratulations, Lee. Thank you for the award, and I just wondered you wearing all your shoes tonight.
I didn't. I wore my running shoes to get back in time.
I just wanted to ditto what Dr. Miller talked about our Negro Community Day. It was a wonderful event. I really enjoyed myself immensely. It was a good spirit in the place, and I was just glad to meet the citizens of Danville in that area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.